I'm delighted to be joined by Leah Kent, veterinary physiotherapist. Thanks for having me with you here today, Leah, to show an insight into what you exactly do. And how did you come about doing this?
So I trained in the UK. I finished my leaving here. I'm from just outside New Ross, South Kilkenny. I've always been involved with horses. We have a small yard at home where we break and produce. Naturally, I always wanted to work with horses, but I suppose wanted a career where I could make a living from them. So I decided to go down this route. I moved to England the week after I got my Leaving Cert results. It kind of all happened pretty fast. I didn't think I'd initially get the points to go there, but when I did, it was a bit of a rush. I then studied for 4 years in Whittle University College, just outside London. That was an integrated master's. I did not like it for the first 3 months. I was away from home, I was away from my horses. I was so homesick.
In London as well, all busy.
Yeah, but I said, look, if it's what I want to do, I got to stick with it. I actually worked in the canteen on campus, and that was the only thing I think that kept me there. I said, look, I can have a job like this now for the rest of my life, or I can, pull my socks up and stay here and get the job I want. So I ended up loving it. When I graduated, I stayed in England for another about 2.5 years. I graduated pretty much the week Ireland and the UK went into lockdown, so that was like not good in terms of getting jobs and stuff. I didn't want to go back at that stage and move home and go self-employed straight away. I just felt I was too young and kind of didn't have any industry experience in the physio world to go and set up straight away. So I actually moved up to Scotland, up to Inverness. I was there in a clinic for about 1.5 years, and I was lucky. I got there and basically was given a full caseload of animals to see. It was a sink or swim situation. So yeah, I was in at the deep end, but I really enjoyed that. And then I actually moved back down to London, where I worked for about another 1.5 years, 2 years. I actually went back and lectured at the university where I studied. I took the anatomy modules, and they were very good to me. They gave me a Monday and Tuesday working in the UK, so I could go home then the Tuesday evening and work the rest of the week in Ireland to test the waters, I suppose, and see what demand would be like. And I was really lucky. It just kind of took off from there. I had worked in racing yards on my holidays when I was studying, riding out and kind of doing the flat work in those yards, and so I suppose that gave me an insight into the racing industry alongside the sport horse industry, which I would have already been involved in from working with my mum and my grandfather at home. And then I suppose within 3 to 6 months I just had enough work to kind of go at it full time. My parents were not impressed when I told them I was leaving a lecturing job to go set up self-employed. I think I was only just turned 25. They kind of thought I was daft, but anyway, it worked out. And yeah, so I'm full-time at it by myself, working for myself today.
So it's gone from strength to strength since you started. Yeah. You're in many of racing yards throughout the country, and show jumping yards and event yards as well, or is it mainly just horse racing?
It is, I suppose, 90%. Like my core, my work is racing yards. Okay. I'm really lucky, like just outside New Ross, I can be Tip, Kilkenny, Wexford, all within. I don't have to travel more than like an hour and 20.
Yeah, good location for you.
Yeah. So yeah, most of my week would be kind of race horses. That's a mixture of national hunt yards, flat yards, point-to-point yards, and then I also do some yearlings and store horses for sales prep. So it's nice because I can follow them like from, say, when they're yearlings, up through to when they're actually racing. And now I'm starting to see horses that I would have seen for sales prep in training, so I suppose the longer I stay at it, I will get to follow them more and more. I do, of course, still do sport horses, show jumpers and showing horses, but that's probably more seasonal, whether the race horses are all year round. Yeah.
How the hell then do you fit in? I know you have horses of your own at home and you're big into show jumping and that. How the hell do you fit all that in?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually think I'm delusional sometimes, why I try to do both. But yeah,
that's just for the love of it, obviously.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have one without the other, I suppose. I am where I am in the physio side of things because of my background in horses, and they definitely do help. I'm, like I said, very lucky. I work with my mum, My grandfather, he's 92, but I mean, he's still mucking out stables, lunging horses every day. So like, I will not take any of the credit for the running of the yard at home.
Okay.
Mum breaks all the horses. I don't look at them till they're ready to be lay across and backed. And then like I start to ride them. We have students that come help us as well, so it's a team effort. My mum still teaches part-time as well. So yeah, the mornings are early and the nights are late, but we do it, I suppose. We're all addicts really, aren't we?
Yeah.
So and in the winter time then the yard at home you're kind of just feeding them and keeping the thing ticking over, and that's when the national hunt and the pointers get busy, so it does work well that way.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do question my sanity sometimes, but I wouldn't have it any other way either.
Fair play to you. Now, the most important thing, the job, what pays the bills, and what you're very, very talented and good at. This horse, this mare, you've never seen her before.
No.
Tell us a little bit, when you walk in a stable door of a horse that you've never seen before, is it different to a horse that you've seen on several occasions?
Yeah, the initial session is always quite different, more so because you're just trying to get a background on the horse. So I would have asked the guys on the yard here today, like, you know, what's her story, what has she done, what's her level of work. I think she rode a piece of work yesterday, so again you'd expect her today maybe to be a bit sore than she usually was, or a bit tired.
And especially that being her first piece of work of the season as well.
Yeah, especially this time of year, what we're September, they're kind of starting to turn up the dial in all the point-to-point and national hunt horses, so the cracks are starting to show now. So I'll chat to the trainer, the guys on the yard, the lads that ride her. Even when I can, like, you know, the people that feed and all that, do they eat? Like, what are their, like, kind of temperament-wise? In the yards that have flatwork riders, I will, like, basically play the flatwork riders. They give really good feedback on the horses. So I kind of have an idea of what to expect from the horse before I even go to the stable door. I will then take every horse out, I'll watch it, I'll stand it square just to see how it is for symmetry. That will tell you a lot as well.
Okay.
Then I'll watch it walk up, trot up. Sometimes I'll watch them on a circle. Not always. I do that more so, I suppose, for the sport horses. Then I'll come in, I'll run my hands over them, so I'll palpate them. I'll start with their limbs, and it's the same palpation since like day one when I was taught in university. You know, you go through the whole animal from basically their jaw here to the very back of their hind limb. Then you kind of have enough information on like where you need to work. On the horses that have more specific injuries, I will zone in more on an area. I suppose that varies. The national hunt horses, because they're a little bit older, vary from the flat horses where, you know, you're working on 2 and 3 year olds. The flat horses and like the yearlings for prep, I find have like more localized specific injuries. Mm-hmm. Whether the national hunt horses that are older, like, you know, they could be 7, 8 more, they have more repetitive strain injuries where you're kind of working to maintain them at a level as opposed to rehab them from a specific injury. So yeah, from there, after my palpation, I will just get into my treatment. So say with her today where she was sore, I lasered her initially. I don't always use laser. If they're particularly sore or a little bit sensitive, I'll use it just to help soften up the muscle and relieve a bit of that tension before I go in manually. I would say 99% of my work is all manual, so with my hands I'll use this essentially a rounded piece of metal, a fascial edge tool.
Which I was asking about, which I was intrigued to know what it was.
Yeah, so you'll see that all that does is deepen my palpation and rest my hands a little bit. I do a lot of stretching with them and mobilisations where they'll allow. It's quite different, I suppose, from human physio. I have to be patient with these guys. You can't just say stand still there now for 10 minutes, it's going to hurt, but you know, you'll feel great after it. You have to kind of go slower with them, so you won't get it all done, you know, in one session, even though you might want to. They will have a certain threshold where you'll be told get out of the stable fairly lively then. Versus the horses that I see regularly, so in some yards where I'm lucky enough to be there every week, I will get to know the horses really, really well. So I will have like a baseline for every horse. I'll have known them from previous seasons. I keep all my notes. I send all my notes every night as well to the trainers, so I can just flip back and look at them. so they can see that as well. So you get a baseline for every horse, and then you're just essentially maintaining them, keeping them comfortable, keeping them doing their jobs. If I think it doesn't need a treatment that day, or if it's fine, I'll happily move on. We'll see it the next day. And that's where, like, chatting to the guys in the yard and the trainers and the people that are riding them is really important as well, because they know the horse as well. They spend so much more time with it than I do, so they could say, oh look, he just was stiffening up again today, he probably should be seen again, and we just work it that way.
Something that I hear is, obviously it's very common, but it seems to be getting a lot more popular in, obviously me dealing more so in national hunt and flat yards, is flat work for these jump horses. Why is that so important?
I think it's probably essential for them, and more people are starting to do it. It's essentially their core. So if their core is strong, the rest of them will have to be strong. It's like us running, when you're running, the first thing to fatigue is your posture. Like, you'll slump over because you get tired, and then once you slump, even like respiratory starts to be compromised. And I know they're quadrupeds, so it's a little bit different for them, but a strong core will support them in so many ways. It works. We won't go into the nitty gritty of it, but the biomechanics of how they actually propulse themselves from behind, they need their core to lift up, say their thoracic sling, to get the hind leg under them. And I think especially with the bigger horses, that's where we see so much injuries, particularly the big 4-year-olds that are weak and raw, like their sacroiliac and their backs fall to sunder unless they have that strong core. And that's where flat work comes in, to strengthen them. And you will really see that. I mean, they could be cardiovascular fit and ready for any race, but unless they're strong as well, you will see that in the final couple of furlongs, where they're running so well and then they just hit a wall and fall away, where they don't have the strength. They might have the cardiovascular fitness, but if they don't have the musculoskeletal strength, it's an uphill battle for them. So basically, you can do all the gallop and have them as fit as you want, but that's not going to be a popular opinion. But yeah, look, they do need to be strong in their core, but for injury prevention as well as performance. What about swimming? Yeah, more and more people are swimming. Swimming is great for some horses. It is not so great for others. Horses with legs or lower limb injuries, it is good for, because it's a non-weight bearing activity, but they're still stressing their cardiovascular and their musculoskeletal system. The only horses I would say swim with caution is horses with really weak backs. For a horse to swim, they have to stick their neck up and their back goes down and they invert it. So if they have back issues anyway, if they have a strong back, swim away. If they have a weak back, you kind of need to strengthen the core before you start swimming them. But yeah, for sure, for horses that have, say, tendon injuries or poor weak joints, or even just horses that, especially the last week or so where we actually haven't had rain. I saw a yard yesterday, where they were all a bit more jarred up, probably just because the ground was a little bit harder. So they're swimming would be ideal for them, but it's not accessible, I suppose, to everyone. What's the most enjoyable part of the job? I enjoy loads of aspects of it. I think definitely seeing the horses out and performing, seeing them progress week to week, and then watching them race. So I will try. I don't often get to see it live, but every horse I treat, I will try to watch their race. Even if they haven't done well, it can tell you a lot about them. There's one horse that comes to mind in particular, quite a good horse. He has a really strange head carriage, and when I palpate him, you can feel that. But watch him in his races, and you see that head carriage. And you can see often how they're jumping. If they're jumping across the fence, that's pretty indicative of you see that a lot, trying to avoid something. So I will try and watch every horse I treat run. So I usually sit down at the evening and go through racing TV and watch the highlights. I think probably the national hunt, watching them, on the big days, that's pretty rewarding. See that your hard work is paying off for them physically. Yeah, well, it's everyone's hard work. It takes a village to get any horse to those stages. But yeah, it's definitely a team effort, and that's pretty nice to watch them in the big parade rings. Before I let you go, if people are interested in requiring your fantastic services,
How do they reach out to you? Social
I'm,
media?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I am probably not very active on them, but my contact details are on there. And if you just pick up the phone and give me a shout, we can organise something that way.
Well, Leah, it's great in getting to know you, because I've got to know you the last few weeks through this, and you do an unbelievable job.
Thanks, Dave.
And it's great to see the inside of what you do for the horses.
Yeah, thanks a million. And you. Thank you.